looked at me and he said, Susan, where's that light coming from? Susan, please tell me where that light is coming from. He started screaming, Trapper. He was screaming from the top of his voice, please tell me where the light is coming from. There was no light in the room. The room was dark.
Touched by heaven, everyday encounters with God, those moments when heaven and earth collide. And we see God, we see his hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Could be with a light from where? A divine light. Or angel encounters, divine interventions, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences. It's all here. Welcome. This is Touched by Heaven. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. This is such a great day to tell you this story. As we post this, it's New Year's Day. It's a new beginning for 2024, but it's also something else too, and it has to do with who Jesus sent to convert, to continue the conversion of Sue and her husband, Gerard, or Ger. Sue is in Dublin, Ireland.
I am.
Let's see, in Ireland, do you have to end every sentence with "don't you know"? Or is that that's just the American version of Irish? Don't you know?
Don't you know?
Don't you know? And what does Sue do?
I'm an eyelash technician.
Did you say what?
Eyelash technician, extensions.
Oh, extensions. Why we like longer eyelashes? Why do we like longer eyelashes?
Makes you look good and feel good inside.
Interesting how this conversion story began a year ago, end of January, with the dog, Daisy. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Up until that time, what, you're a lapsed Catholic, you're not going to Mass, there's not a lot going on. What's going on before Daisy?
Nothing. I always believed in God, but I never went to Mass. I always had my own faith. I always believed in God and Jesus and Mary. I always prayed in my own way, never ever disrespected faith or anything like that.
Well, what brought you back? What happened?
My husband, he got very sick, and I used to pray a lot for him.
Sue's husband, Gerard, or here in the U.S. we would pronounce it Gerard, was born with all kinds of health issues, almost didn't make it. Certainly kidney issues have troubled him his entire life.
So he was given the last rites, but miraculously he survived.
And that was as a child. That was a baby.
Newborn baby, yeah. So a couple of years down the line, then he got sicker and sicker and sicker. But with technology as it was back then, nobody knew what was wrong with him. The last couple of years, he was really unwell. You know, he used to always say to me, Susan, if there was a God, why would he let me suffer like this? And
excuse me, your dog is saying there's a fire in the barn and Gramps is under a beam. I watched a lot of Lassie when I was a kid, so I know what he's saying.
Yeah.
The dog barking is not the dog in question. That's Millie, not Daisy.
It all kind of happened with Daisy. Daisy got sick. She had very severe heart problems, but the doctor, she was on medication, you know.
So Daisy, with her heart issues, is taken to the vet by Sue. Sue then goes home, and she's just going about her day. She's sitting there, and she hears a voice that she's never heard before.
Out of nowhere. I don't know where this voice came from. It just says to me, pray the rosary.
Interior voice?
Interior, yeah. Inside my head. Just pray the rosary. I have never prayed the rosary in my life.
Sue had never prayed the rosary, had no idea. So she Googles it. She goes on YouTube to figure out how to pray a rosary. Even
in school, I can never remember if I ever prayed the rosary. Got down on my hands and knees and prayed the rosary, word for word, listening to it. And it was just after I finished praying the rosary, it was like the mother created this vision for me.
Sue, praying her first rosary ever, is given this vision. She sees the Blessed Mother Mary with the dog at the doctor's office.
Yeah. So she showed me her standing beside Daisy's cage with her arms outstretched, and she was smiling. Now, I have to say, she was the most beautiful figure I have ever seen. Words, you couldn't put into words her beauty. It was just mind-blowing. She kind of looked over at me, and she pointed to my I have this, it's like this ornament on my television, and it says home. And I said, oh my God, thank God. She's telling me she's going to be okay. She's coming home.
So Sue and Jer hop in the car, head to the vet, pick up the dog because it's time for the dog to come home. Jer's driving, Sue's holding the dog, Daisy.
So we were halfway home and I looked down. She looked up at me and she died in my arms. My dog literally died in my arms. And I reckon Mary was telling me, she's not going home with you. I'm taking her home with me.
The other home.
Yeah. And she just looked up at me as if to say, I'm going now, goodbye. And she died in my arms. After that, Jer kind of started to go downhill a little bit with his health. He was kind of in and out of hospital. And I had scheduled to go to Medjugorje, and I said to Jer, look, when he got really sick, I said, I'm going over to Medjugorje. I'm going to pray for you. And hopefully, this is going to turn your life around. So he was just, oh, yeah. So Jer was in hospital this particular time. I'd say it was around March. And this particular day, he was in an awful lot of pain. And he kind of cried to himself and he says, oh, God, please help me. Please help me, God, So he said, Susan, he says, I don't know why, he says, or what happened, he says, but out of all the beds in the hospital, this priest walked straight over to my bed, sat down beside me and asked me, would I like to receive communion? He said he felt so much love in that particular moment when the priest came over to him. And he said, yeah, I'll receive communion. So he received it. And he said, Susan, he says, as soon as that communion went on my tongue, my pain just disappeared. So he says, I reckon that was a sign from God. So that kind of changed Jer in a way. That happened again 2 days later when he was back in dialysis. The same thing happened, pain again, and he cried and he says, oh, Jesus, please help me. Again, the priest came up to him, sat down beside him. But this time he handed him a set of rosary beads and a miraculous medal. Now, Trapper Jer wouldn't even know what a rosary bead looked like. He hadn't got a clue. So he held onto these rosary beads and he said, Susan, they gave me so much peace. And he says, after that, his life kind of changed. He started to believe that God was listening to him. So kind of that's how it all fell into place for Jer.
Jerry begins to tell the chaplain what's been going on. I was in pain. You gave me communion. The pain went away. You came back in another time and I'm in pain. You hand me the rosary. I have peace. You give me communion. The pain goes away again. He's telling the whole story of what's been going on while he's been in the hospital.
And the priest says, well, Jer, you asked for help and God sent one of his army towards you and he helped you. And he says, well, he actually did. Jer came home.
Sue's downstairs. She has her rosary. And she begins to pray.
So Jerry's upstairs in bed. I'm praying the rosary downstairs. And I just happened to come up to see if he wanted anything after I finished the rosary. And he looked at me and says to me, Susan, were you praying for me? And I says, yeah. Why? And he says, because I could feel it. And I says, well, that's good. I says, well, at least it's on your side. They're helping you. So the next night, again, I prayed the rosary for him again. What I seen was Padre Pio with his hand on his head and Mother Mary with her hand on his shoulders. And I went back upstairs to Jer and Jer says, Susan, were you praying for me again? And I said, I prayed the rosary for you. He started crying and he said, Susan, he says, I can't believe, he said, I'm feeling this way. He says, every time you pray for me, he said, I'm feeling this warmth and this, it's like a loving feeling he was feeling, going right through his body. And I said, yeah, and I told him who I seen, because Jer used to love praying to Padre Pio after, because the priest gave him a little booklet with Padre Pio on it, so he kind of prayed to Padre Pio.
He is a remarkable saint. Anybody who questions anything about saints, the beauty of Padre Pio, obviously, he's in recent times. He died in 1968, so this is recent stuff, but there are so many stories about the miracles that happen through his prayers and so many stories about incredible things that happen in the confessional where he would know their sins better than they knew their own sins. Great World War II stories of how pilots would see him in the air and he wouldn't allow bombs to drop on his city. And he had the wounds of Christ. He had the wounds of Christ for 50 years, and on the day he died, they disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, he's amazing. He really is.
Yeah. Okay, so he's feeling the prayers. He loves Padre Pio. Has to be helping his faith. This has to be helping your faith.
I have such a strong faith, and it's helped me so much. And being in the church, I go to Mass now every single Sunday without fail, which before I never did, but every single Sunday. And I help out in the church. I do readings in the church. I'm a volunteer in the church, so like my faith is so strong now. I've been to Medjugorje this year. And
tell me about that. Tell me, you went in June, you said, yeah?
Went in June. So I'm going to tell you a story before I went to Medjugorje. So Jerry went back into hospital in the May.
Jerry's kidneys are continuing to fail. His body is filling with fluid. He's having seizures.
The dialysis wasn't really working for him that well. And he said, Susan, I'm not getting out of here. And I said, Jerry, you are. I said, you will be coming home. He said, Susan, I'm telling you now. He says, I'm not coming home. He was sitting on the bed and the curtains were drawn. So the room was kind of dark. Jerry looked at me and he says to me, Susan, where's that light coming from? And he looked and he said, Susan, please tell me where that light is coming from. He started screaming, Trapper. He was screaming from the top of his voice, please tell me where the light is coming from. There was no light in the room. The room was dark. So the light was on him, it was all around him. Now, I couldn't see anything. He was obviously saying he saw something that he didn't like. He knew he was going to die, and I think when he's saying that, he knew then that, because he obviously didn't want to die. And it was the last time I ever spoke to Ger, but it wasn't very nice because he was so agitated. He was screaming, he was fighting something that we couldn't see, only he could see. So on the Sunday then at 3:45, Ger passed away.
You were there when he passed?
I was, yeah. Thank God. I was, yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about that moment, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was like, it was just surreal.
What's your take on all the agitation?
The agitation was, with me, I knew that he's seen something, and that's why he was so agitated. And his brother kept saying to me, Susan, when you were gone, and Ger was dropping off to sleep, he kept jumping and sitting up. It's like he was pulling himself out of something. And Paul said, that was his brother, he said, Susan, he says, I think Ger was gone and he was bringing himself back. He said that's the only way he could describe it, the feeling that he got with Ger. Yeah, it was just so crazy. I was looking at Ger and I was like, my niece was there and my sister-in-law was there. So we were all talking about Ger, and I was playing Ger's music. Ger was a real, Northern Soul kind of fan. So I was playing mostly Northern Soul for him, because that kind of his music. Ger always swore that his music was his religion. And
what kind of music? What kind of soul is it?
Like the Four Tops, Aretha Franklin. So that would be kind of what I played for him, because I always kept Ger calm, the music. There wasn't a heaviness in the room. There was, the chaplain was there when he was saying prayers, and even seeing the chaplain with him, because Ger used to look up at the chaplain like an innocent child. And I just seen the bond that he had with the chaplain, and they had got a bond, and the chaplain cried when Ger passed. And he said, Susan, he said, I can't believe that he's gone. He says, because me and him have gotten so close. He helped him through so much darkness in his life. When Ger passed away, the nurse came in and she checked his obs and she goes, no, he's gone. And I says, no, he's crying. Ger started crying. The tears were coming out of his eyes when he passed. He was literally gone, and the tears were coming out of his eyes. He was crying, and even his brother was standing over his side of the bed, the other side. And he said, Susan, he says, the tears are still coming. And I said, I know. So obviously his soul was leaving, and his soul was, sad to go. But,
look how far 6 months. Look how far he came.
I know. It's crazy. To see his soul getting so strong as well, it made me feel happy for him, because I knew then that he did believe, and that made me happy.
What a merciful God to come and get him in that last 6 months, wake him up, give him the experience of feeling prayer. he suddenly was all in.
Yeah, but come here and I tell you, Trapper, a couple of weeks before Gerard passed away, we were talking, and we were in the sitting room talking, the living room. And Gerard looked at me and said, Susan, he said, I don't think I ever told you this. He said, but I was born on a Good Friday, 1968, the 12th of April, 1968. And I says, what? And I says, Gerard says, do you understand what that means? I says, that explains everything that you've gone through in life. You've been carrying your own cross throughout your life. And I says, that's amazing to know, like, he was born on a Good Friday. And he was dying on that Good Friday. And I even said it to Gerard. I says, God wanted me and you to meet. And that's why you were spared, because he knew that you and me were going to meet and the life we were going to have. And that's why he spared you. And Gerard said, Susan, he says, you're right. He says, I think that's right. So then everything happened then in Medjugorje.
So right after that, you went to Medjugorje.
I did. Everyone persuaded me to go, and I have to say it was the best decision I ever made, was to go. We were in the airport, and everyone kept saying to me, "Look, don't be sad. Jerry's going to be with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So my friend that organised the trip, she asked me to hold her cardigan. It was a white cardigan, and I'm sitting down, and I'm just thinking about Jerry. And something says to me, Susan, look down at the cardigan. So, Trapper, I looked down at the cardigan, and what name was on the cardigan? Only Gerard. And
explain this again. Whose cardigan is it? It's a cardigan sweater?
Yeah, it was my friend. She asked me to, because she was organising all the women. She was making sure that all the women were there.
Where was his name on it?
It's like, the label.
That was the label, was Gerard.
Gerard. Gerard. Yeah. And I knew then from that moment that this trip was going to be amazing, and I said it to my friend. I says, Joan, look at the name on the cardigan. And I says, you're not getting this back. I'm keeping this, So yeah, we went to Medjugorje eventually. Now, Trapper, of all the things to go missing, my luggage bag didn't arrive in Medjugorje. But I just said, look, the worst thing that could have happened to me happened to me. I lost the love of my life. This is just a blip. And everyone kept saying, why are you not angry? And I says, there's no reason to get angry. Like, I'll find my bag. My bag will come back to me. I know my bag will come back to me. It's just a blip. And you know what, Trapper? It was only because I started listening to your podcast last year. And I was listening to your podcast, everyone talking about Medjugorje. And I says, oh my God, I want to go there. Because I was listening to all the miracle stories from it. And I said, I need to go there to help Ger. So that was on my bucket list. I wanted to do Medjugorje for Ger. That's who I was doing it for. But I was still doing it for Ger when I went, because I felt so close to him there. Even though he wasn't with me anymore, I just still felt the closeness that he was always with me over there. They went to the Blue Cross. And you know where Our Lady is?
Right. Part of the story is what's called Blue Cross. Yeah.
But when I stood in front of that statue, I don't know where the tears came from, but I was literally sobbing my heart out, because I could see Ger, my husband, standing beside Our Lady. He showed me himself standing beside Our Lady, and Our Lady holding his hand. And I felt her hands on my shoulders. And I just got this beautiful feeling going right through my body. And I was like, thank you, Mother. I know you have him. And I thank you for that. I know he's safe in your hands. There's no words to describe how she made me feel. It was just amazing.
There are different options in Medjugorje of where to stay. And Sue's group had decided to stay close to the church, St. James.
And we were kind of right beside the church. So you could hear all the music, all the choir singing. From early morning till late at night, you could hear the choir singing. Mm-hmm. It was like you were sitting right in the middle of heaven, and you could hear everything. It was mind blowing. The next time we did Apparition Hill,
mm-hmm.
We got to the top. Trapper, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. And after they finished the rosary and everything went really, really quiet, there was one fork lightning. I looked up at the sky, and fork lightning just went directly towards Our Lady. lightning, but it was like just one piece of lightning at Our Lady. 5 minutes later, then, Trapper, the heavens opened. Now, Trapper, anyone that knows me knows I hate getting my hair wet. I hate getting my hair wet. This rain was literally different. It was like you were getting a cleansing. It was absolutely beautiful, the feeling that it gave us, and everybody was crying. I was crying, I just felt so good after it. So we went to, I'm sure you know of the Risen Christ, the statue. I started crying again. I was like, oh my God, I said, the feeling I have standing here is just so overwhelming. I just felt like he was there. He was actually there, and he was telling me everything's going to be okay. Don't be worrying, everything's going to be okay. So I went off and I was crying, and everyone kept saying, are you okay? And I said, yeah. So I just feel so overwhelmed, because it was just so peaceful and loving. The feeling I got there was just so loving. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, that was just the highlight of it. It's just that's being there at that statue was just amazing. I've never seen anything so beautiful in all my life. And even the location of it, it's just like, you have the church and you have the Stations of the Cross going right around. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Never seen anything so beautiful in all my life. But I was saying, what's everyone running for? Next of all, I looked up, Trapper, I'm not joking you. The sun was literally moving down. It got really, really big. I took photographs of it and videos of it. And it was like the rays were moving. And people start getting down on their knees crying. And I was like, oh my God, I said, I cannot believe this is happening. It was a miracle.
And everybody could see it.
Everybody could see it, because everyone ran right into the middle where the statue was, behind the statue, and everybody was just looking up at the sun. It was literally huge. And about 5 minutes later, then the sun kind of started to move back up, just slightly move back up and over. But it was just amazing. I have videos of it.
There are so many stories of the sun dancing, twirling, getting bigger, getting, all of that. Then the different colors that shoot off of it, and just, yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. The day before we went home, I just kept saying to women, I don't want to go home. I literally don't want to go home. I want to stay here. And they were saying, I know. And I felt so close to Ger, but she was making me feel so close to Ger, I was just so mesmerized. It was like she was calling me. So I had to go down to her every day. But the whole trip was just mind-blowing.
So all in all, it was just a great trip to Medjugorje for Sue. Now she's coming back, and there's still one thing she has not done. All the official documentation and filing, the death certificate and everything, there's still some work to be done about her husband's death. She has to go in and make it official in all the different ways and everything. And that's going to be a tough day, and she knows that. Something Gerard did at the end was he wrote her a love note, something that was kind of usual for him. He was very good about writing Sue love notes.
He'd always write little cards and leave them around for me. But it was just everything he felt about me, he wrote in that letter to say how much he loved me. So when Gerard passed away, I couldn't for the life of me remember where I put it. Searched everywhere, searched the press in the sitting room 3 or 4 times, took everything out. There was nothing there. So
the press?
Yeah, the cabinet. PRES. We say press, you say cabinet.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the education. I didn't know that one. Okay.
The night before, I was due to go in and register Gerard's passing to get his death certificate. I'm sitting in the sitting room, and a voice kept saying to me, look in the press. And I kept saying, I looked in that press already. It's not there.
So you're looking, and you're hearing, look in the cabinet, and you're saying, I already looked in the cabinet.
They looked there. I took everything out, so there was literally nothing in there. So I said, well, okay, I'll look in the cabinet. I opened it and folded up on its own on the top shelf, Trapper. I'm not joking you. There was this letter. And I reckon that was Ger saying, I know what you're going to do tomorrow is going to be hard for you. So I reckon you need this to help you. And it was the letter that he wrote me, the last letter he wrote me before he passed away. It was the very, very last letter, so I couldn't believe that I found it the night before I went in to do this.
Sitting right on top.
Yeah, definitely. Right on its own. There was literally nothing else on that top shelf. It was empty. Just that one letter.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
God is celebrating your love. He's celebrating Gerard. He's It's just such a celebration wrapped around his life and this past year. And by the way,
Yeah.
yesterday, just so you know, yesterday I was working on this week's episode, and I can't explain exactly what this feels like, but I almost get pushed out of this room. I almost get pushed out of my office when things aren't right or something's not right. And it was like, no, that's not the episode. And I'm going, I need an episode, and as I record this, it's Saturday, December 30th. So as we post this, I am reminded that January 1st in the church is a feast day of Mary. And so I think that's why Mary was nudging me towards your story before I heard it. January 1st is a special day for Mary. It's called the Solemnity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God. One of the titles Mary was given because Mary is the mother of a person named Jesus, and that person has two natures, God and man, making Mary Mother of God. And so there's no doubt in my mind that this episode just kept getting nudged towards Sue's story, to wait for the interview, and then to wait even until Monday, the 1st, in order to post this story, because Mary, beginning to end, is part of this great conversion story. And Mary's part of my conversion story, as I've told you many times. Her fingerprints are all over my conversion. You can certainly see them in the conversion of this beautiful couple.
Lovely.
And that's why Mary wanted me to wait for you. Nice.
Definitely. So that's my story, Trapper.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And you're a perfect example, and it doesn't happen for everybody, but you're an example that it is happening, whether or not you have a vision of Mary and Padre Pio, or somebody feels the prayer or doesn't feel the prayer. It's still happening, whether you see it or not, whether you feel it or not, it's still happening.
Mm-hmm,
it doesn't take away the reality of it that it's going on, whether you see it or feel it or not. It's going on with all of us. When we pray, we move the hand of God and something happens, whether it's felt or not, or whether it registers or not, it counts. Something happens in the process. What you've done is bring reality to prayer life and how he's always there.
100%.
So thank you for that. Thank you for all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for your podcast. I love to listen to Everyday Miracles. And now I listen to your podcast in work. And I have to say, work just flies by because I'm listening to you. And I say half the people in the school where I work do be going, what is she on? Because I'd be like, oh, if you're hearing a story and it's a sad story and you're walking around the school and you're going, oh my God, but you're saying it out loud, and people are looking at you as if to say, is she okay? I say, I'm sorry, I'm just listening.
You got your earbuds in and you're
yeah.
That's great.
It makes me feel good knowing that other people are, being helped by your podcast, because it has literally helped me 100%. Listening, especially all the Medjugorje podcasts that I've heard on your podcast, it was just, that literally helped me so much to get through these past 8 months of Jerry's passing. It's just, thank you. That's all I can say.
Oh, God bless you. I always ask the takeaway. Your takeaway is what, Sue?
Believe what you hear. You don't have to see. You just have to believe. That's my takeaway.
Thanks, Sue. A wonderful conversion story for Sue and your husband, Gerard. God bless him, and may he rest in peace. And you can't help but see Mary's fingerprints in all of this, from Daisy and the vision within Sue of Mary and Daisy, and the vision of Mary and Padre Pio praying with Gerard, and Medjugorje, where again she saw Gerard, as we might say here, Mary and Gerard there in Medjugorje. And as I say all of this in this conversion story and all wrapped around Mary, I'm not missing the fact that I've been trying to post this episode, I swear, for the last 36 hours, and always something delays it, and now I see why, again, no coincidence why it was delayed. Just now, in Medjugorje, on January 1st, there was just a 3-hour prayer service that Mary asked Maria, the visionary, that's Maria who we stayed with, along with Touched by Heaven listeners, a couple of times. But anyway, so on the 31st of December, Mary told Maria to have everybody pray for 3 hours, from 3 until 6 p.m. And then that would be today, for today. And then there would be the message for today, which was just given and translated. And I want to play that for you now. So
Ni sinovi vaši sinova, ni vaša djeca I djeca vaše djece.
During the moment of the apparition, when Our Lady came, she came joyful. She prayed. She prayed for all of our intentions. She prayed for all of us. She prayed over us for a longer time. And she said, "Thank you for having responded to my call. You will not regret this, nor you, nor your sons, your children, and the children of your children."
I blagoslovila nas je sve.
And she blessed us all.
Sad ćemo pitati svećenike da nas blagoslovi.
And now we will ask the priests present here to give us their blessing.
So there you go. That's what Mary said today. And, I'm no expert in these messages from Medjugorje. I don't always pay attention to the monthly messages or daily, but that seemed unusual to say, you won't regret this for praying today. You won't regret this for answering my call to prayer today. You won't and you're the children of your children. That's hopeful in a world that seems on an edge of destruction. For Mary to say the children of your children, that's like, it feels like something happened today with all the people that were praying. And again, it doesn't always take all that many of us to move the hand of God in prayer. So I think this, I'll find out more in the days to come, but that seemed to be an exceptionally hopeful message from our Blessed Mother through Maria today in Medjugorje. Okay? All right. Okay, thank you. So what's your story? Encounter with angel, divine intervention, near death, whatever it is. Let me know here at touchedbyheaven.net. Thank you so much for supporting us through Patreon. If you want to do so, please join the family. It keeps this going. The stories do, as does your financial support. Thank you. Again, here at touchedbyheaven.net or patreon.com. And just search for Trapper Jack. All right, I am Trapper Jack, and let's do this Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God next time. Okay. I'm just your basic everyday podcaster, but I am thinking about another career move. Maybe this will be my evening job.
Eyelash technician.
Eyelash technician?
Makes you look good and feel good inside.